welcome everyone to the second episode of Green Source on the Air. And we have a very special night tonight. And we are, of course, recording all of our shows so that they can be archived. So if you miss part of it, you can always come back and watch it at a later date. Or if you have friends who are particularly interested in tonight's topic, again, they will be archived through Green Source DFW, and we will, and you'll be able to watch it again and again. And I think we'll have a wonderful evening. Tonight's topic is organic gardening and healthy, sustainable eating. We'll have several guests, but we have big news to start with. I now have a co-host. We have Victoria Howard from Dallas Sierra Club and other wonderful green groups. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, Wendell. Thank you for allowing me to be the Regis to your Kathy Lee. I'm very grateful.
There you go. Well, it's been a fun project so far, and I think the more people we get involved, I think we will be we'll do the entire green community a favor, and we're doing ourselves a favor too.
Absolutely.
Victoria is the program chair and the conservation chair at Dallas Sierra Club, one of our sponsors. We'll come back to sponsors in a second. But as you recall from last week, we are our goal is to be relaxed, but to give you some good information about what's going on in the green community. I call it our fireside chat for tree huggers. And so that's what we're trying to do. And Victoria was looking for the George Carlin vibe. I was trying to get the National Lampoon Radio vibe. So we're going to have to wait and see what comes out. So let's talk about very important people. Let's talk about our sponsors tonight. And our newest and biggest sponsor, our title sponsor, is Dallas College. Through some very long years of working together with Dallas County Community College District, now known as Dallas College, working with George Ann Moss and other of the people there that are our friends. We have all spent many an hour at EarthX together. And so Dallas College became our title sponsor. They have very exciting programs. And many of you don't know that Dallas College has been at the forefront of many of the green issues. They were being sustained. They were working on sustainability long before it became fashionable, so to speak. So we are very pleased to have them as our main sponsor. We also have some of the usual suspects, people that we love very much. John and Margie Haley, you know, stalwarts of the environmental movement on so many different fronts. Of course, our friends at EarthX and EarthX TV, who are our banner sponsor on Green Source DFW. Dallas Sierra Club, another long supporter of Green Source. And I think you're probably all figuring out that we are in this together, and that we work together and we play together. And it's so nice that we can do that. We also have two brand new sponsors. Stephen F. Austin State University has started a sustainability program. And that is sort of one of the coming things at the universities. They're finally catching up. We'll be asking Howard Garrett tonight about his online university and his online school, and get some more details there. We also have a new sponsor, City of Fort Worth Solid Waste Services. Needless to say, they're on the very front lines of recycling and trying to keep us from drowning in our own whatever. So we're looking at that, and let's see, what do we have left? Carl, what's up on our next slide?
First guest.
First guest. Our first guest, and we all hear this many times, needs no introduction, but just in case some of you are new to the area, Howard Garrett has been a friend of the environment, again, way before it was fashionable. He was the 2016 Lifetime Achievement Award winner from Green Source DFW. And he's has his own syndicated radio show. syndicated columns all over the country, and is certainly the go-to authority for organic gardening and several other subjects. And we appreciate his taking the time to be with us tonight on Green Source on the air. And Howard will bring up your, I like the picture though. I like your puppy.
That's the tater.
Is that the tater
Yeah.
person?
Yeah. Do I need to click on share screen maybe?
I don't know. Good question.
You should probably click on share video so we
I
can see
think
your.
just,
There you are.
There you are.
Did that work? I think
Perfect.
we're on.
Very good.
How's everybody?
We're great. Welcome to the show, Howard.
Thank you.
I want to start with a couple of questions just to kind of tie back to when you were our keynote speaker. You told us a little bit about the early days of the organic gardening movement, and I just wanted to know if you could at least tell us a few minutes about what it was like to be one of the first organic gardeners, and certainly someone that would publicly admit that you were an organic gardener.
Well, it all started in 1984, 38 years ago, whatever it was, when my daughter Logan was born. And I saw her do what all kids do, and that's bend over and pick up things and stick them in her mouth. And I decided to not have any toxic chemicals around my little girl at that point. And I didn't even know what the term organic gardening was at that time. I started the column in the Dallas Morning News and my radio career in '88. So I spent those first 3 or 4 years just asking people about organic gardening and landscaping and farming and ranching and getting tips and books recommended to me. And that's how it all started. I bought it hook, line, and sinker the minute that it was explained to me and the minute that I read the old masters that have been around forever. But so we've been doing it a long time, but there's still no universities teaching what we teach, what we try to get people to do. So we just started our own online course through our nonprofit, which is called the Texas Organic Research Center. And people can see that on dirtdoctor.com or go straight to that website. And the course is 15 chapters. You have to listen to me teach the chapters, but right now it's the only place where you can learn this natural organic approach for landscaping and gardening. No universities, including where I went to school, Tech, teach it. In fact, not too many of them are even very positive about the idea.
Yeah, in fact, if my memory serves me right, didn't you get some pretty good resistance in those early years when you even tried to put it out to the public, and then certainly when you tried to put it in play in the commercial world? I recall that you got quite a bit of pushback.
We did. When we started writing the column in the news, the Dallas Morning News, I think that's when we had the most organized resistance. We actually had the Landscape Contractors Association and some A&M people and some others try to get me kicked off the paper in the early days. And my editor came to me and said, "Can we do some tests at the Arboretum?" I said, "Sure." And so we went to the Arboretum and we had meetings there and we talked about it, and they said, "Okay, we're going to have tests, but we have to put out exactly the same amount of nitrogen with your stuff as with what we recommend." And I said, "Wait a minute, time out." I said, "One of the main tenets of what I teach is that you don't have to use as much nitrogen." You know, the whole thing has fallen apart before we start. And so it was that, and they said, "Well, we have to test one thing, one product, one element at a time." I said, "Well, time out once again, that won't work either. That's not how nature works. Nature is holistic, and everything that you deal with, whether it's water or the soil or the plant itself, the insects, the lizards, the toads, the frogs, the snakes and the birds, everything is related. So everything that you do, when you use something that's detrimental to the soil and the water or toxic to you and me and the little dogs like Tater and whoever. Every time you make a mistake in any one of those areas, you affect all of the others as well. And they said, okay, good. That's the end of this meeting. We'll move on. And I haven't had anything to do with Arboretum since, which is one of my biggest frustrations, that the Arboretum, which is a gorgeous place, they do wonderful work, and it's getting better and better, but they've had no interest in the natural organic program at all. I've had some meetings with them, but they've never gone anywhere.
Yeah, they're kind of, there are certain groups that are sort of slow learners, shall we say?
Yep.
Howard, can I ask a follow-up question to what you were talking about? So prior to 1984, when you were a traditional landscaper, and I was reading in your bio that you also worked on the Brookhaven Country Club and Golf Course. So did you make the change overnight after observing your daughter, putting things in her mouth? Or did you gradually bring your clients along with you to the organic path? How did you make that transition?
That's a great question, Victoria. By the way, my grandfather's name was H.B. Howard, and he was in the sweet potato business over in Pittsburgh and Gilmer, Texas. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we're related in any way. No, I bought it hook, line, and sinker the first time I read the concept of it. It just makes so much sense to me that everything is related to the health of the soil. If the soil is not right, nothing else can be right, because it's where the roots grow, where the proper kind of biological activity, mycorrhizal fungus and helpful bacteria and protozoa and all the wonderful things, where the pH of the soil is just right if you do the organic techniques. By the way, one of the things that we don't talk about much with the organic program is NPK, the 3 big numbers on fertilizer bags, and the pH of the soil. In other words, the chemistry. The universities deal with the chemistry side of it, which is fine. It's very important. But also what's just as important is the biology and the physics. And that triangle is what's not taught in the universities. You've got to have an understanding of how all that works. And the real secret is the biology. If the biology is healthy, the chemistry and the physics will probably be in pretty good shape. But there are some organic things we can do to properly move the chemistry and properly move the physics as well. Aeration, the use of hydrogen peroxide to do a liquid version of aerating the soil, in other words, and the list goes on and on. We've got all kind of techniques that work wonderfully, but the key is just healthy, biologically active soil and plants that are happy about where they're being grown.
Absolutely. Wendell, I apologize if I'm stealing your next question, but if I could ask one more.
Ask all you want.
Wonderful, wonderful. Howard, do you find that people choosing to plant native plants and species have healthier soil overall, in that the plant is happy because it understands the soil that it's in, and the soil is happy in response? Do you find that has a bearing on the overall health of your yard?
Yeah, I think there's a direct relationship there, and I'm a very strong proponent of native plants. There are people that I compete with that kind of poo-poo native plants, which I'd never have understood. But I don't use just native plants. You can't. And the reason is, in the vegetable garden and the herb garden, there are no tomatoes native to Dallas, Texas. There are no okra plants or cantaloupe. So we're always having to step over the line and try to grow something that's not perfectly well adapted. But guess what's the best way to do that? The organic program. Healthy, biologically active soil is good for introduced plants or the native plants, either one. Just the natives adapt to it and like it even better. The tree that I've got in my yard that's shown me the most about this, taught me the most, is my ginkgo tree. I have a ginkgo tree that's almost the largest one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and mine's only 40 years old. The ones that are a little bit bigger are 100 and something years old. Mine is grown so well. I planted it when Logan, my daughter, was born, who's also the announcer on my radio show. But we also have had it under an organic program since day one, and we have exposed the base of it to flare dramatically, and that's part of the sick tree treatment. And that's what I've been trying to teach people about, have been teaching people about, from this freeze damage that we've had and all the damage to live oaks and red oaks and crepe myrtles and everything. I'm teaching people that if they use the sick tree treatment, that's all they have to do to get their trees to come back, unless they're just damaged too much. They've gone too much over the hill.
Yeah, the 0 degree temperature certainly exposed a certain type of our plants that just simply couldn't make it.
Well, the 0 degrees was so unusual. It was even a more unusual freeze than back in 83, 84, if you remember that, when it stayed below 0 so long. This freeze didn't last as long, but we got colder, and some of the plants that are the tough natives like red oaks and live oaks got damaged. And part of the reason was all the warm weather that we had leading up to that date. And then the other was just how ridiculously cold it got. Most of the damage is cosmetic, 90% or 85 to 90%, but there are some dead plants out there, as you all know. And I think we're going to see a few more die when it gets hot and the plants go into a second level of stress. But again, the key is, and I've written about this in my Dallas Morning News column and talked about it a lot, the key is to apply the sick tree treatment to any plant that you have that you know has gone through some stress and is showing it off. On the other hand, if your plants look perfectly healthy, and a lot of them do, a lot of them look healthier than I've ever seen. It was like they loved this low temperature. You don't need to do it on those, but the ones that obviously have some stress, the sick tree treatment, and it's explained in detail on my website, but basically it's exposed the flare dramatically, the base of the tree, and then aerate the root zone either with hydrogen peroxide as a liquid aeration or physically aerate, and then put out all the organic amendments that I recommend for bed prep: compost, rock minerals, and sugars. It's that simple. You can also get rid, by doing the same thing, mistletoe from trees, sapsucker birds pecking holes in the trunks of your trees, oak wilt, if you happen to be in an oak wilt area, red oaks and live oaks, and any other major disease or parasite or pest. The sick tree treatment will take care of it, because what it does is it relieves the stress in the plant and allows the plant to take care of itself. That's the way.
I've certainly noticed, Howard, that the plants that had the heaviest mulch and leaves just kind of piled up for protection, they did better certainly than the ones that were just kind of hanging out there.
That helped. And you know what else helped, especially grass, turf, and ground covers and low plants, was the 6 to 8 inches of snow.
Yes.
We had an insulation blanket from it, and it didn't help the big plants that as much as the low growing plants. So it was a really interesting thing. We learned a lot. There were a lot of things that I learned from this event that I didn't know before.
Wendell, I think you brought up a really interesting point, and I'd like to kick that back to Howard. Howard, are you a proponent of not raking leaves in your yard and just letting them be the mulch that insulates your plants for the winter season?
Victoria, yes and no. If you leave the leaves on the ground without doing anything to them, that's great for the trees and the big plants, but the small plants can get covered up and can get damaged. So what I normally recommend is to mow them with your mower out in the turf, or if you don't have enough turf like I don't, I have so many trees, you mow the leaves in the driveway, and then you put the leaves back in a finer texture so they work down through the smaller plants. We're kind of that's not a real natural kind of thing, but we're dealing with, with her landscaping, not a 100% natural situation. But if you have nothing but trees and big plants, there's no reason to not do what you suggested at all, with one caveat, and that is, even then, you don't want the leaves to build up on the base, on the trunks, the flares of the trees.
Okay.
People ask me, well, why doesn't that happen in the forest? Well, in the forest, it all falls down and gets scattered around naturally, and it just typically does not build up right on the base of the tree. So just in your landscaping, be careful about that. We want the flare. I was just removing leaves and ivy and ground covers and vines that had grown back to the bases of my trees just a couple of days ago. It's an ongoing thing, very important, maybe the most important landscape management technique I recommend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're already getting a few questions from some of our wonderful people. What's kind of the latest on pest control? I remember that the soaps were big for a while, and pyrethrins were big for a while. We had a question about literally physically picking pests off of your plants. Kind of what's the latest in the organic pest control business?
Well, when I travel around and do lectures on different subjects, one of my lectures is the natural organic pest control. And the first step of it's what we've been talking about. Having the healthy biologically active soil, having the flares of plants, any woody plant, not just trees, ornamental plants, vine, grapes, and smaller plants too. Anything woody wants to have that flare exposed. That's step one. Keep the plants out of stress. The unstressed plants can resist insects and diseases very well. The second step of pest control is to use biological techniques, and I recommend beneficial nematodes and trichogramma wasps, in other words, beneficial living organisms. And then if that doesn't take care of it, the next step is to use sprays that repel, that don't kill. And in that category, I've got garlic and garlic pepper tea and some of the herbs if they're not mixed too heavily and that sort of thing, because we don't want to kill the beneficial insects and microbes. Okay, that takes care of 99.9% of the problems right there. Then if you finally have a pest you can't get rid of, we take the final step, and that final step is to use an organic killing pesticide. In that category, we have orange oil, neem, hydrogen peroxide can kill diseases beautifully. We've known forever that it would be good for a cut on our hand and everything, and it took us a long time to figure out that, well, it'd be good for bacteria and fungus and even viruses on plants as well. If you overdo it, you kill the beneficials, though. It's a killing tool that you use it at the end. So that's my program. Orange oil is probably what I recommend the most, mixed with Garrett Juice, this mixture we call Garrett Juice. If you need to kill some aphids or some beetles or some pest of some kind. But the biological techniques of beneficial nematodes in the soil for the soil pests and trichogramma wasps for the caterpillars up on things above the ground take care of most things. If the plants are happy, there's not concentrated sugars in the trunks and in the stems of the plants. When that happens, that's what attracts the insects. If you have a rodent eating your Japanese maple, the bark off a Japanese maple, if you have a sapsucker bird poking holes and sucking the sap out of a tree, if you have any kind of animal that's coming in and attacking your trees, what it's doing is it detects the fact that the tree's in stress. The tree has concentrated the sugars in an attempt to heal itself, and the animal, squirrel, rat, squirrel, whatever it is, can detect that concentration of sugar and comes after it. You use my sick tree treatment suggestion, expose the flare, the animals go bother other plants.
Are
So
these,
we use very little aggressive preventative pest control
Right.
other than keeping the plant out of stress.
did you say that your online school is what, 15 chapters?
It's 15 chapters. The only negative about it is you have to listen to me teach all of them. And at the end of the each chapter, you have to take a test. You have to pass 100%. And when you pass, you get certified by the Texas Organic Research Center. And those people in the business in any way can use our seal and the fact that they're certified by Torque in their marketing stuff. We're about to have one come out. It's a little late, but it's about to come out any day, I promise. And it's a short course that's just on the sick tree treatment. And we're doing a big live oak tree that's in my front yard that I let get in trouble. And I show everything. I show how to identify that it's in stress in the first place, dead twigs, too much open air, and show the entire process of going through the whole sick tree treatment.
Yeah, we had a question from another one of our viewers about your vegetable garden. And if my memory serves me right, the last time I was over at your house, that you were doing some experimenting, trying, you're still learning. You're still trying some different things to see what works the best. So
learn something new every day.
So what's happening in the vegetable garden at the Garrett household?
Well, my experimental vegetable garden here at the office is the only one where we have a whole lot going on at the house. It's only shade-loving plants. I guess the main new thing that I have learned is that when you're planting food crops, whatever it is, from cantaloupe, squash, jicama. By the way, jicama grows very, very well here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Is to prepare the soil, the beds you're going to plant that stuff in before you plant. In other words, get the beds going in the middle of the winter. It's great timing because we have more time to do it then anyway. Get the compost and organic fertilizers and the rock minerals like lava sand and azomite and green sand and the cornmeal, whole ground cornmeal is vitally important, and the dry molasses. Put into the soil and prepare it, and just let it sit there for weeks or months before you plant, and your production will knock your socks off. It's just amazing how much difference it makes. Like Wendell was saying, the mulch, the shredded native tree trimmings mulch is by far the best mulch there is. Just ground up tree trimmings from here in our area, the best from your own property. But if you can get it from an arborist, a tree care company, before they send it to the landfill and pay the tipping fees to dump it. I mean, it's the best mulch you can get. It's also the easiest way to make the best compost. You pile that ground up tree trimmings on your driveway or in a back place out of the way, leave it there for 9 months, and it'll break down into the prettiest compost you've ever seen. So you can use it as a top dressing mulch, or you can use it in that pile to become compost and use it later. Either one. Those of you that have ranches or farms or know people that do, people ask me about what they should do with the ground up cedar trees or honey locusts or other trash trees that they're taking out. I recommend they leave the mesquite trees. Taking out big bull single trunk mesquite trees is the way to get into a mesquite bush problem. So leave those. But anything else you grind up, you take out, you grind up, you never burn it, you never haul it off, you grind it up and you broadcast it on the ground as a mulch. It's called sheet composting. Right. And it doesn't matter how big the farm or ranch is, there's nothing you can do that will start to improve the soil, bring native grasses to start growing back, and forbs, and improve the soil, and whatever you plant as a crop will love it.
Cool. What you mentioned earlier before we came on the air about you did a Mother Earth news event, and one of our writers, in fact, her son is on the program tonight, but one of our writers used to work for Mother Earth News, and I was wondering what you were involved with them doing.
Well, I have spoken at their the events they have around the country now for 4 or 5 years. I did the first one in Belton because they wanted a Texas guy to be involved in that one, and we had good success. And we've spoken at their Mother Earth News fairs from Delaware to Philadelphia to Oregon to Kansas City, across the country. And it's been fun meeting all kinds of gardeners from all across the country. But you know what? The most interesting thing to learn about all this has been is it's the same thing from coast to coast, border to border. The things that I recommend, I made big mistakes on my early books by putting Texas in the name. And I'm a proud Texan, don't get me wrong. But the publisher wanted Texas in the name, and now the vegetable book that we've got and my other books on specific kind of subjects are good coast to coast and border to border if you adjust one thing, and that's timing. And you adjust that from the first and last average freeze dates. But how you prepare soil and plant a tree properly and take care of insect and disease problems and all the things we've been talking about tonight is the same from Seattle to Orlando and every place in between.
Come a long way, Howard. I believe you have, and we all have. I think we've all learned a lot, and I think most of our people on this show that we talk to, that we all take pride in, never sending a single anything that's organic. We don't ever want to send a bit of it to a landfill. Our goal is to keep it all on our own property and reuse it and recycle it and repurpose it.
That's great. And it's good for you too, not just the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's the best thing for everybody.
Do we have a new book that is coming out? Anything recent?
Don't have a new book. We're kind of concentrating on these online classes. The next new thing will be the short course on the sick tree treatment that's coming out. And it's going to be very affordable, and we're going to try to get as many people to take it as possible. The current online course is available, and it probably has the most detailed, up-to-date stuff of any of the publications that we've done. The last book that we did was the Mother Earth News joint venture we did called the Organic Manual. And the one we did before that was on turf grasses. So I think the Sierra Club and the environmental groups would be mostly interested in the Organic Manual, and the bug book. The Texas bug book is still as current as when it first came out.
And would dirtdoctor.com be the easiest way to access that?
Dirtdoctor.com is the starting point to find all the things that we have talked about. By the way, there's one thing that I don't think enough people take advantage of on dirtdoctor.com. We did a slideshow some years ago, and I call it the Fabulous Tree Slideshow. And it's about 100 slides. It's pretty long. It's free. It's on the free part of the site. It's up at the top right-hand corner, Fabulous Tree Slideshow. And it covers my planting techniques, my sick tree treatment from still shots and all, so it covers it pretty well. And it covers some of the fabulous trees that I've personally been involved with. My ginkgo, the national champion pecan tree in Weatherford, Texas, and some of the other trees that I've been involved in, and then other trees that I've just met, like the 3,000-year-old Montezuma cypress in Oaxaca, Mexico, and all in between. So you can learn a lot about trees from that simple slideshow on dirtdoctor.com.
Victoria, go ahead and ask some questions, and then we'll see if any of our listeners have more questions. And
We do have a few more questions from listeners when we can get to them.
Yes, in fact, Julie and Wendell, you read my mind. I was just going to say we have a lot of questions coming in about trees. I know Miss Halliburton has a couple questions. So let's look at those, because I want to make sure all the viewers and listeners get their issues addressed.
Do you want to go and read that one from Candy Halliburton?
Do you mind, Julie? I
Yes,
admitted
I
I'm
would
on
read it.
iPad and it's a little difficult for me to switch screens. So if you don't mind.
Sure, I will do it. Yes, Candy Halliburton has a question. She said she's got a big bed of native plants planted under her live oak tree in the front yard. The flare of the tree is covered with soil plants. Is this going to kill the oak tree?
It ain't gonna do it any good. One of the big things that I have trouble with people on is I tell them, don't plant posy beds under your trees. You want to keep your flower beds out away from the bases of the trees if you want to have the tree to be as healthy as it can be. Yes, building beds, you tend to water too much. You tend to build it up a little bit more each year, you know, adding new amendments and everything. So it's really best for the tree. You got to, you know, set your priorities. If your main interest is your flowers and your ground covers, and you maybe have some herbs like oregano is a wonderful ground cover, for example, that is a terrifically healthy plant. If you're more interested in those things, let them grow around the base of the tree. But if you're interested in the tree's health, you need to get it all off the flare of the tree.
Okay, we had another question. What about companion planting?
Companion planting is something that I believe in, but I don't get too detailed about it because you can spend a lot of time trying to learn exactly which plants do what with other plants. My philosophy is to use a great biodiversity, just a lot of different things, a lot of different plant species, a lot of plants that have different flowers, different flower colors, different flowers at different times, different fragrances. And if you do that, just have this wonderful blend, you'll have a natural companion result from it. You don't have to know this plant will help that plant. If you want to, Louise Ridout wrote probably the best books on it. She's no longer alive, but if you haven't read any of her stuff, I recommend it highly. And you can find some other good books on that subject. I tend to do more of a shotgun approach.
What do you think about just picking bugs off the plants to get rid of them?
That's fine if you have time. A little hand vac works very well. Stink bugs and leaf-footed bugs and some of those kinds of guys. One of the things that I get asked about the most is squash bugs and squash vine borers, you know, in various crops, especially squash and squash related plants. And there is a certain amount of anecdotal evidence that's coming to me that says human hair chopped up or just used right out of the barber shop in the beds mixed into the soil and everything repels both of those two,
Wow.
which are tough pests. And the other one that helps with that is natural diatomaceous earth, or this product called azomite, which I like even better than diatomaceous earth. What they both provide to the soil is available silica. Even though silica is one of the most, if not the most, plentiful mineral on earth, it's not necessarily bioavailable. So making it bioavailable in your vegetable garden, a lot of times will eliminate those pest problems completely.
Okay, there's a question about termites. It's not really about organic gardening. I'm not sure if this is a related question, but they said a neighbor.
We've got some information on the website about termites. Tell the member to go there, and rather than spending a bunch of time on it now, it's covered pretty thoroughly on dirtdoctor.com.
Okay, that sounds good. Does anybody else have any questions?
Kind of one final broadcasting question, Howard. What have you seen as far as there being a difference in your radio show and the knowledge of the people calling in? Has there been some changes over the years?
Oh, I think so. You know, I've changed radio stations, and we're kind of went down in exposure in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and grew nationally. And now the local and the North Texas part of the audience is building back because we really, besides Bob Webster in San Antonio and me in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's not that many people that have a public voice and write about this natural organic approach. Some of the other people in Dallas and in Houston and in some of the other places will talk about organics a little bit, and then they'll also recommend the chemicals. Well, that doesn't work. If you step off the bandwagon and use a high nitrogen synthetic fertilizer or a nitrogen only fertilizer, like some of the guys around here locally recommend, or a weed and feed fertilizer, which is the worst thing of all, you completely destroy your organic approach, which is to build that life and build that healthy biological activity in the soil. So there's still a lot of people that listen to the wrong team. There's no question about that. Went to the same university, you know what I mean? And all. But it's changing. People are finally giving the organic thing a try. Even the people in the business are giving organics a try. They're saying, I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm going to give this a try. And they're seeing, by golly, that actually worked. That's tremendous. Some of the people in the tree business are finally learning that if they'll take the soil off of the flares of their inventory, their trees are less pest prone. Their customers get better growth. They don't have the transplant shock near as much, and it just works better. And they're like, good grief, if that works, I wonder if the rest of that stuff that character recommends will work too.
Howard, we had two final questions.
That's
One
the
is
reason
about-
I recommend the natural organic approach still to this day. After 35 years of recommending it, it works better than the other way of going in every way, including from a financial standpoint. People are experiencing saving 40 to 50% on their water bill, for one thing.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good money side to it.
Yep.
We had two other questions. One is about sending soil samples to find out what you've got. Where do those, I can't remember where they go to. Where do they go to, Howard?
Well, there's a soil testing kit, and I'm drawing a blank now, and they've actually worked with us in the past. Oh, Soil Savvy. It's a little kit that you use, and it's the best way to go right now. I think there is. I'll be honest with you, on most projects where I'm consulting, and we're doing more and more of that because of COVID and because of the freeze and everything. But in most cases, I don't depend on soil tests a whole lot, because I know that my general approach is going to move the pH in the right direction, and is going to move the bioavailability of trace minerals that are in the soil in the right direction. And I know the stuff I'm recommending to put out will help sandy soil or clay soil or anything in between. So Soil Savvy, if you want a soil test, none of the university tests I recommend, because they don't tell you anything about what's available to the plant. They just tell you what's in the soil. But in most cases, you can just do my natural organic bed preparation and be fine.
The last question, and we'll let you go. And we appreciate your time, because we know you are, especially this time of year, you're busy. Someone was asking about the small bugs that are on the yuccas and on the flowers. And I just saw last night at my house, hundreds, if not thousands of them. And the first thing I thought was, that's healthy. That's good. Did I misread that? Is it something that I need to work on? But I thought it was a good thing to see all those bugs.
Well, some of the yuccas and agaves are in stress. Some of them were killed. One of the ones, if anybody's interested in planting a new one, that I've really become impressed with is called beaked yucca, or Yucca rostrata. It has soft leaves. It's real symmetrical in its growth, but it's soft looking and puts out a gorgeous white flower. Those insects you're seeing could be some kind of stink bugs. They could be some kind of beneficials. A lot of the beneficials, the assassin bugs, look a lot like some of the pests. So take a look at my bug book or go to dirtdoctor.com and see how to identify the difference between a stink bug that's a pest and an assassin bug, which is a stink bug that's beneficial. And depending on which one you have, if you need to kill them, you can kill them with orange oil at 2 ounces per gallon of water or per gallon of Garrett juice. And you can also just spray Garrett juice with a little bit, just a small amount of orange oil, not enough to kill. This is a cool technique. Put about a half to 1 tablespoon orange oil per gallon and spray, and it'll stimulate biological activity at that point. And then the other thing is, if you have white insects on your yuccas and cactus, that could be cochineal, which is the red dye plant, and it's a sign of stress in the plant, and you just need to adjust your watering or change whatever's causing the stress. Too much shade, too much fertilizer, whatever it is, you have to figure that out. But if you do need to kill the pest, you can kill them with a very low toxicity deal. Use garlic pepper tea first if you think they're pests and run them off. Chances are pretty good, though, after you identify them, they're beneficial and you don't need to do anything.
Howard, I learned from you a long time. The other thing you do is you just plant enough for the birds, the pests,
Just
the
share.
people, and you just share.
That's right.
Howard, thank you so much. Victoria, any final word from you?
No, thank you, Howard. If I had to ask one last thing, and I know you have to go, in all of the work that you've done, and as you look to the future, what is the one gardening environmental issue that just makes you smack your head and go, "Dope"? What's the big one that we need to start focusing on next?
GMO products directly related to Roundup in the food and the incredible health destruction that that's causing to our gut, to our general health. Those lawsuits you hear on television, those class action lawsuits, haven't even gotten to the point of addressing the big problem with Roundup yet. And that's what it does to the gut of wildlife and pets and you and me. So that's the biggie.
I absolutely agree. And it drives me crazy to listen to my neighbors talk about using Roundup. It literally, it's almost all I can do to hold myself back. I am with you.
Tell them
Thank
about
you,
vinegar. They can use vinegar and do the same thing as Roundup does.
Absolutely. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed being with you. It's been fun.
We'll see you in person soon. We all
I
hope.
hope so. Please.
Thanks a lot, Howard.
All right, thank you. What a great way to kick off organic gardening and healthy eating. Our next guest is a new person, a new guest for me, and we are so glad to have Kelli Myatt. And Kelli is the owner of the Healthy Hippie, and I obviously have some questions about that because I think she's a little too young to be a true child of the 60s. But Kelli, we are so glad to have you, and we want for you to just tell us a little bit about your story and what you're doing in your restaurant and kind of how you got there.
Awesome. Well, first of all, hippie is in the heart. Doesn't matter when you were born. It's a way of life. So
that's Victoria.
Yep. Yep. And I also have to thank Dr. Garrett. I honestly had no idea that the Garrett juice that I've been using for years came from him. So I'm super excited to have met him. That's awesome. A little bit about how I got started. Honestly, I've been plant-based since 2001. And another thing that resonated with what Dr. Garrett said was that, you're met with resistance. Anytime that you're trying to do something different from mainstream, you're going to be met with resistance. And boy, can I tell you, in 2001, in Texas, in rural Texas, I was met with a lot of resistance. And at first I was defensive. I was, unsure why I was being, I felt attacked, honestly. And I quickly learned that didn't help me. It didn't help anyone. And I just started creating my own recipes and sharing food with people. And when you bring food, there's not many people that are going to be like, no, never mind. I didn't say anything about it being plant-based or organic. I just simply shared the food, and lived my life. And as by example, a lot of people were wondering, what are you doing? You know, you're vibrant, you have great energy. They wanted to know what I was doing. So it was my kind of open door to start sharing my lifestyle with people. And from there, I started helping people detox. And our detox program still exists at our cafe currently. And it's an elimination of caffeine, alcohol, sugar, dairy, and anything artificial or packaged. And by nature, it is plant-based. And so I started helping people for free, sharing recipes. I created programs for them, customizable to their schedules, their lifestyle, any allergies or, you know, food aversions that they might have had. And I did that for years. And from there, people liked my food and encouraged me to start selling it. So I went one day and got my DBA on a whim, called it the Healthy Hippie, and started at Keller Farmers Market. And quickly, you know, week by week, we were growing in popularity, and we had a line and we were selling out. And one day a friend of mine asked, you know, why don't you just open a restaurant? I was like, no, that's not something I think I want to do. I know how it is to run a restaurant, and it's a lot of work, and I'm not sure I want to do that. So I sat on it for a little while, and one day a space was brought to my attention that was an existing restaurant. And again, dragged my heels, waited a few weeks to go see it. But the minute I walked into the space, I knew that I was called to be there. And it's just you know, everything that a restaurant should be, it's not. It's upstairs. The parking lot is not great. There's a lot of challenges and obstacles, but I'm the kind of girl, when you say it can't happen, I say, watch it happen, watch me. And it's just been a blessing to have been here almost 5 years. And we were able to expand in the midst of COVID. And we have a much bigger dining space now. We have a full service bar serving organic vegan wines and culinary cocktails. And we have some outdoor seating. We have live music 5 days a week. So my little project of helping people detox has grown into a much bigger venture.
Are you still doing farmers market, or are you doing pretty much everything through the restaurant?
We actually are. The season just started. This will be week 2 for Keller Farmers Market. We also do the Watauga Farmers Market on Sundays. And I am toying with the idea of getting a little food trailer and kind of offering different items in that food trailer that you cannot get at the restaurant. Things like paninis and chickpea salads and things like that. So that's on the horizon. We have a lot of things on the horizon. I just hired an executive chef under me to help with some chef specials and future menu creations, and just our efficiency and our flow to be able to handle a lot more volume. So we're real excited about the future.
You better tell the Dallas people. I think most of us know where Keller is. I hope. I live there, so I hope I can find it. But tell everybody where Watauga is so that we can send you some business.
So that's the funniest thing. I always get comments, why Watauga? And I said, why not? You know, people need to be eating healthy in every inch of the earth. And unfortunately, when back in 2001, I traveled to New York a lot, and it was so easy there. Any street corner I could go and get something that I could eat. And then I'd come home and I just almost a state of depression. I was like, why can't I find this stuff? And that's another thing that prompted me to create my own recipes and cook so much, is because it was out of desperation. So I live in Keller, which is just west of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, and Watauga is just south of Keller. So coming from Dallas, the easiest way would be to go 183 west and merged to 820. And we're 5 minutes south of 820 on Highway 377.
Oh, okay.
From the north, like if you're coming from Roanoke or Louisville or Denton, you can come down 377 or 35 north and exit North Tarrant Parkway. So we, we kind of are making a loud noise here in Watauga. We recently did our Earth Day celebration. It was our 4th annual Earth Day festival, where we invite the mayor and we get the city involved. I remember when I first started composting and I had a compost bin out by our dumpster, they wanted me to get a permit for that. And I said, it's, all I'm doing is separating the trash. I'm putting the food trash in one bin and the rest of it, and we also recycle. But outside of that, why would I have to pay to separate my trash? So I did a little educating on that, and we still have our compost bin, and whatever we don't use in our own broth and other types of recipes like our apple skins and pulp we use in our baking, but whatever we don't use is going to the compost. Some of it goes to my house and some of it goes we use a service called Cowboy Compost, and they come and get it.
Wonderful. Victoria,
Yeah.
I know you've got questions, and I know we have a lot of vegan / vegetarian / people that should be vegan or vegetarians watching. So Victoria, tell us, ask Kelli, see what do you like to know?
Kelli, first of all, I loved your comment, hippie at heart. I could not agree with you more. For those people that may be new to the idea of vegetarianism and veganism, could you point out the differences between the two? How is vegan varying from just a traditional vegetarian diet?
Sure. What I tell a lot of people is I try not to use labels too much. For us at the restaurant, I think that I adapt the term plant-based a little bit more. I see that vegan is more of an ethical and an environmental term for people who are trying to eat for the environment. And I see that plant-based is more on the healthy side of it. What I love is for us to coexist. You really have to find your why. Why are you transitioning? Why do you want to eat a plant-based diet? If any way you look at it, it's a win-win for yourself and for your environment. But when you're asked, and especially when you're a newbie and you're transitioning, you will be asked, trust me, you need to have a good solid why so that people cannot sway you and so that you really are latched on to your reason. The difference really between vegan and vegetarian would be the consumption of eggs and dairy. So for vegan lifestyle, you are eating nothing from an animal, even honey. Anything that might cause harm to an animal or in the process of making, there's some supplements that the gel caps or the gelatin is not vegan. And people ask me all the time, wait, what do you mean vegan wine? Isn't all wine vegan? It comes from a grape. No, it's the way it's the fining process. So it can be overwhelming at first because it's things that you never even thought about, but that is primarily the vegan lifestyle, is to eliminate anything that is sourced from an animal. For vegetarian, it would be that you include dairy and eggs. And then, there's a whole other realm, and that's the whole food plant-based realm. And that's kind of where we are at the restaurant. And that is, we are fully 100% organic. We're also soy-free, which is interesting. Most vegan restaurants really rely on soy products in their recipes. And we are using beans, peas, lentils, grains, herbs, vegetables, and spices. And we just put it together creatively in different recipes. I hope I answered that question. Was there a little bit more you'd like to elaborate?
No, you absolutely answered the question. And I just have one follow-up, and then I know there's a lot of questions for you. Just to give you a little context to my upcoming question, I was raised around a lot of macrobiotics, which for people who don't know what that is kind of vegan, where everything is cooked past a certain temperature. And I am the person amongst all my friends that cook for the vegans who are no oil, the fruitarians, the every offshoot of veganism and vegetarianism. And it is very, very involved sometimes to keep track of everything. For those of our listeners who may want to dabble into vegetarian and veganism, but maybe worried about how do I get a complete protein? How do I get all my amino acid strains? How do I make sure I'm getting healthy fats that usually come from fish and dairy and so on and so forth? How do you address those concerns for people who may be teetering on the edge of trying?
That's a great question. Of course, anytime you talk about, eliminating animal proteins, the first question is, well, where do you get your protein? They're hidden in everything. Even oats have protein. Vegetables have protein. But for us at the restaurant, every dish that we serve is going to have at least 2 sources of protein. So a bean or a pea or a combination of those with a grain. All of our protein patties have all of that. There's only one of our protein patties does not have any grain, and that's our green pea. And as you know, peas are a fantastic source of protein. But it's just a combination is what I like to tell people. For instance, hemp seeds, all 21 aminos. It's a complete plant-based source of protein. Buy a bag of hemp hearts and sprinkle it over your salad. If you have any question whether you're getting enough protein in that meal, just add something like that. Or for instance, a salad with some black beans, why not add some pumpkin seeds to it? To me, it's insurance. It's just that extra layer to ensure that you're getting a little bit of everything. And speaking of that, I feel like a lot of times people who are new, they'll latch on to something that they know they like, and then they won't try anything else because it's convenient, because it's easy. And maybe for time constraints or just, lack of creativity, a lot of people get in a rut and they get stuck. And that's not healthy either because you're not giving your body the variety. So I guess to answer that question, the best thing you can do is just open the door to as many protein choices as possible. And again, that's under the pulses category of beans, peas, and lentils, under the seeds and nuts category. I'd say the hardest thing to maneuver around in this lifestyle is a nut allergy, but we can do it. We do. But that would be hard for me particularly because I'm really nutty.
Pun intended, right? Pun
Right.
intended. Well, and just to add to what you're saying, there
We
are
have
also.
a question.
Oh yes, go ahead, Julie.
We've got a couple of questions. Lori asked, what are the items that we should detox from?
Great question. I'm not counting environmental toxins because there's a lot of them. As far as food toxins, that's going to be caffeine, alcohol, sugar of any kind, even if it's healthy sugars. In our detox program, we go to 0 sugars because food, you have your own sugars in the food, fruit, for instance, but also, alcohol, sugar, dairy, anything processed. So a lot of the pesticides and the chemicals and the preservatives in your food, that's the hugest thing that you should detox from. And a lot of people have a hard time removing or understanding dairy. I speak to a lot of people who say, well, I don't eat a lot of dairy. I don't really drink milk or have butter. You forget about whey that's even in a package of chips. It's hidden everywhere. So even it takes a really good analysis of what you're currently eating to see what you need to detox from. Metals, for instance, There's metals in foods. So those are the primary things though that are on our detox program. I also have strategies that help you detox from environmental toxins. And those are all in my program. It's like a daily menu of things that you can do, activities, for instance, infrared sauna, foam rolling, coconut oil pulling, charcoal. There's a lot of different strategies that I use in relation to our food detox that help speed things along.
Did you see the question, Julie? There's a question about soy. Can you give us a little more detail about why you don't use soy?
Yeah, I decided early on, first of all, a lot of people have allergies to soy, and it does set us apart. It makes us, when you open a restaurant, you got to find something that makes you different and unique. And it is definitely challenging. We don't outsource anything. We make everything from scratch. And when we're planning our menus, for instance, tonight we have a special Women in Business dinner. It's a networking event that we do monthly to help bring people in the community together and share and network. We do off-menu specials all the time. We have Sunday brunch specials. We have Taco Tuesday. And that takes a little bit of brain work to be able to put these ingredients together without any soy products. There are also people who have been advised not to consume soy because of hormonal issues or imbalances or the risk for breast cancer. There's a lot of controversy on that subject, but that's another component to the reason I made that choice.
Yeah, there's been some studies on soy and its effect on old white guys like me.
Yep.
And so I was glad to hear that that soy might be on that list. Well, we appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you for taking time tonight, especially with an event going on right behind you. What is the address in Watauga?
Oh, we're 6600 Denton Highway, Suite 210. So we are upstairs, but I'll tell you the view is the best in the area. Our sunsets are spectacular. And again, we have live music 5 days a week. So it's a great date spot. And it's a beautiful atmosphere up here. And we just, our whole front of the restaurant is windows. So it's just even when it's raining, it's just a really cool, I kind of nickname it the Treehouse Cafe, because it feels like we're up in the trees. You don't even see the road.
And the food's great too.
Thank
Julie,
you.
did you have some other, Julie is our resident expert vegan. Julie, did you have some questions for Kelli?
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Okay, all right. Well, I may have called you the happy hippie, but healthy
We're happy
hippie.
too.
All right, well, you're the happy, healthy hippie, and everything you're doing is just awesome. And we really appreciate you spending time. And obviously, it was a perfect match for Howard Garrett tonight. So that
Yes, yes.
That was an added bonus for all of us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Come
Yeah,
visit us.
All right, we'll let you go back to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Julie and Carl, did Andrew join us?
Yes.
Andrew is here. I hear a voice. Can we get I see a square. There he is.
Hello.
Hey.
Andrew looks like the happy hippie too. So
Oh my gosh, where did you find that photo of me?
hey, I keep asking them to get younger and younger photos of me. So that's great. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being with us. We
Thank
of
you.
course know you're a writer for Green Source DFW, and we know your mother is one of the rock stars in our business, and she was obviously an incredibly good influence on you. So kind of tell us what you've been doing lately, and then we'll get to the really important stuff, the cookie company. We'll get to that at the end of our discussion.
Absolutely. So like you said, I've been writing articles for Green Source DFW on mainly on restaurants around town, which is great because I generally get to eat lunch for free, so always like that. But other than that, just kind of finished up school. And I guess in my last year of school, sorry, you might hear my dogs in the background. But so I guess early 2019 is kind of when I started the cookie business, but my vegan journey, quote unquote, started in 2015. And I will admit that it was for mainly selfish reasons. I was looking to, kind of slim down, get in shape. And I'd heard that eating a, vegan diet, eating a lot of green veggies and fiber and so forth could help with that. But soon after kind of making that transition to veganism, I learned a lot more about the ethical issues around veganism and eating a plant-based diet, as well as the personal health benefits and so forth. So,
Well, tell us about the transition. Victoria was asking about that, and again, for any of us who might be thinking about trying to eat in a more healthy manner,
Sure.
I think the transition period, psychologically and physically, might be the toughest period. So, give us an idea of what you went through, and maybe what you recommend for all of us.
Sure. So I don't know if I just lucked out, but I sort of just made the transition overnight. So maybe I'm not the best representation, but you hear a lot of people that I speak to. They often, I tell them that I'm following a vegan diet. Oh, what is that? Well, that's where I don't eat meat. I don't eat any animal products, so including milk and cheese and butter and so forth. And I often hear them say, oh my gosh, and I could never do that. But now, I started following a vegan diet, I said in 2015. And just since then, in the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, do you ever go to Whole Foods or Central Market and not see a new vegan product on the shelves? You got Beyond Meat, I think, Impossible Meat, Miyoko's is amazing. So all these different foods that are coming out now that can sort of help in that sort of transitional phase to a vegan diet. Something kind of interesting, as you walk through the grocery store, I would say that more than half the food in the grocery store is vegan. Oreos are vegan. I wouldn't recommend an Oreo diet, but it's just kind of food for thought. I think that a lot of people are sort of scared away by the word vegan, but I think especially now, like I said, just in the last 5 years or so, there's so many new vegan products out there that can help sort of introduce people to the lifestyle.
Well, I mean, I like the thought of Oreos, and I forgot to
I
ask
love Oreos.
Kelli. Yeah, I forgot to ask Kelli about that, but I could have sworn she said sprinkle something with Pop-Tarts.
Mhm.
Like, well, okay, if she's going to sprinkle it with Pop-Tarts, that's quite a diet. But
Yeah.
so in your work as a roving reporter for Green Source DFW, tell us some of your favorite restaurants that maybe we should all visit. Of course, in addition to the Healthy Hippie, the Happy Hippie.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously the Healthy Hippie is a great one. I just did an article for a restaurant called Belinti's Love out in Fort Worth. It's a vegan Mexican restaurant, and it was absolutely amazing. Loved it. And obviously Spiral Diner is probably one that a lot of folks know here in Dallas, and they have some locations, I believe, in Fort Worth and Denton as well. So unfortunately, due to COVID, we've had a few of the vegan restaurants close around town. In fact, probably my favorite one was Loving Hut, which was, I believe it was in Addison, North Dallas area. And I was really sad to see them go, but I'm kind of hoping they'll open up sometime in the future. But yeah, there's so many restaurants around town that are not strictly vegan. They don't really advertise themselves as being a vegan or vegetarian restaurant, but it's often that you'll find that the menu has vegan options, or you can slightly modify something on the menu to be vegan. I know that even some place like Chili's, which is traditionally, they're known for their baby back ribs and so forth, they actually have a vegan fajita option that you can get. So that's just down the street from here, which is nice. But yeah, there's so many restaurants around town. I would encourage people to just check them out, just any restaurant, and take a look at their menu. And if you can cut out the the cheese and meat, then you're good.
Good.
Andrew, I have a question. Is there a listing or a website that people could visit to find a listing of all the vegan restaurants and bakeries in town?
Yes. So I believe the app is called, I should know this and I feel kind of ashamed, but I believe it's called, the Happy Cow. Yeah. I was going to say the Purple Cow, but I think their logo is actually a purple cow, but it's the Happy Cow. Yeah.
So it's an app called the Happy Cow that you would download, and it can direct you to vegan and vegetarian restaurants in the Dallas area?
I believe so. Yes. I believe both vegan and vegetarian.
You
But
can go to their website, the Happy Cow,
Yeah.
and type in the location and it brings out whatever's in that area.
So it's a website and an app.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wendell, can we move on to questions about the cookies and baked goods now? for
I
Andrew?
was going to head that way, Victoria. I didn't want to be, too forceful and directing the talk, but I think it's time to talk cookies.
Get into the good stuff.
We need to talk sweets. So I have a question. For my friends that are vegan, some of them are also wheat intolerant.
Mhm.
And so to find vegan wheat-free baked goods has been difficult for me.
Mhm.
Do you have suggestions or comments or a direction that you could send me?
Yes, so we actually used to sell at the farmers markets a lot, and you'd be surprised by how many folks have sensitivity to wheat. I never knew that until I started going to the farmers markets. But we do offer a vegan gluten-free cookie, so we don't use wheat-based flour. But other than that, just check out your local grocery store like Whole Foods. There are tons of
What about
wheat-free
Bake Shop?
flour. Sorry?
You know, of Reverie Bake Shop and
Yes,
Some-
yes, yes. Absolutely. They have tons of gluten-free options as well.
they're vegan and they do gluten free.
So believe it or not, Whole Foods, or at least my Whole Foods, had only one vegan gluten-free cake option, and they shipped it in frozen. So Whole Foods was not as resourceful as I had hoped. So I am grateful to learn about the other two suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Reverie is a great one.
Excellent.
So back to cookies. What? So you're in the cookie business, right?
I am.
And who are you selling the cookies to?
So like I said, we started doing the farmers markets, I guess all of 2019 and sort of the beginning of 2020. But obviously with COVID around March of 2020, we had to stop cold turkey with the farmers markets, as everyone did. So we kind of had a decision. Did we want to close up shop or kind of try to re-engineer ourselves into a different kind of business? And we started doing mainly online sales from there. So towards the middle of 2020, kind of third quarter, we also started selling in some stores. So we were in a few stores in Grapevine, as well as some food delivery services in Allen. So like Profound Foods, Atabla, and so forth. So we're still in those now.
Good. So can we order them online, or can we have them delivered? Can you have them here in about 15 minutes?
Sure, I'll have to send out some samples.
They're
But,
really good. You got to try them.
But yes, just go to franklygood.com and place an order, and we'll get them right out to you.
Good. All right. Now everybody else can ask questions. Now that I know it's franklygood.com. Got it. All right. Go ahead. Who's next with questions?
So what are some of the, this is Julie, so what are some of the substitutions that you use in baking for the traditional ingredients? You know, the vegan substitutions that people could try at home if they wanted to bake vegan at home.
Sure. So it's actually interesting. As much as I bake, most of the time when I want to try something new, I will often look for a non-vegan recipe and try to kind of go down the list of ingredients and pick out the non-vegan ones and replace them with vegan ones. And 99% of the time, you're going to get milk, eggs, and butter. So for milk, I've often found that just replacing it with water is pretty much the same. You can also replace, use like soy milk or almond milk, oat milk, things like that. For butter substitutes, this is probably the easiest one. You have margarine. Pretty much all margarine is vegan. You can use something like a vegetable shortening. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but like something you might be familiar with is Crisco. Crisco is actually vegan, believe it or not. And for egg replacer, there are tons of different egg replacers you can use. Flaxseed, you can use applesauce. I've heard of people using bananas. Probably the best ones that I know of are like aquafaba, which is the water that you get from a can of chickpeas. So if you drain that out, you use the fluid in the can of chickpeas. I like using a store-bought egg replacer. It's actually a gluten-free egg replacer from Bob's Red Mill. So it's surprisingly easy. Just kind of find a recipe and switch out the non-vegan elements and replace it with the vegan stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Julie, what else do we have? Any other questions coming in from our fan base?
Let's see. That's all that I've gotten so far.
Okay. Well, Andrew, we appreciate you being here so much. Tell your mother hello. I hope she was watching tonight.
She's actually here with me.
Oh, is she? Oh, all right. I kind of saw you get poked a few times, but we y'all are two of our most special people, and
Thank you
all
very
of the
much.
good work you've done, and with us all getting back in person, I think we need to have some field trips, some green source field trips,
Absolutely.
remote on the airs.
Oh,
And
there's one
Yes.
thing. Did you mention the name of your business?
Yes, Frankly Good. And you can go to franklygood.com.
yeah, I've already written that down, Julie. I've already got that put down in ink. All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. I have two final things. One is, if you have the time and you're not too zoomed out, there is a fundraiser going on right now by the Sierra Club Political Committee. They are raising funds for the Dallas City Council runoff. And I think if we've learned anything from this last political session, that if you don't elect good people, then we all suffer the consequences. And if you're interested in going on, finding out how to donate even a small amount of money, go to Turn Texas Green, all together, TURN, texasgreen.org/events, and it'll send you to a link. And David Griggs, the organizer from Dallas Sierra Club, will be there to let you in. Then the next thing and last thing I want to tell everybody is that next month is going to be, it's such a special issue, and it's so important. Next month we will be very close to Juneteenth, the celebration of when the slaves in Texas were finally told they were free. And so Juneteenth is going to be next month, and we're going to do a special program on environmental justice. It's no secret to those of us in the business that the corporate polluters are very good at finding the most vulnerable and, in their mind, the weakest people to move into their neighborhood to do their dirty work, literally. So, and as you know, for those of you who watched last month, Marsha Jackson and Shingle Mountain is the prime example, the most recent example of that type of activity. So we're going to dedicate the entire show next month to environmental justice. We'll have some great guests, and it'll be, I believe, the third Thursday, and I believe that's the 17th of June. Julie will be sending it out, and of course, we thank Julie Thibodeau and we thank Carl Thibodeau. Without Julie and Carl, it would make they make us look good, don't they, Victoria?
Absolutely. Julie and Carl are the best and irreplaceable.
Yep, they are. And thanks to all of our guests tonight. And we will see everybody next month.
Thank you all. Thank you, Wendell.
God, thank you, Victoria. You did a great job, Victoria. Thank you.
You too, dear. Thanks, everyone.